What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Bianconerizon on this Tuesday, the 17th of January. We are going to talk about a little bit of transfer news, but it's also linked with the main topic. And as you can see on the thumbnail, excuse me, it's about Del Piero. He spoke out and he said something interesting. I'll keep it at that. But before we get into it, please like the video, subscribe to the channel as always, and hit that bell notification. Now, Del Piero spoke, and I think it's relevant because he is kind of tipped to be the next quote-unquote vice president, whatever you want to call it, from the club very soon. You know that those were the rumors, all those things. Nobody knows if it's gonna happen for sure, but I think the links were quite strong, and his statement, he kept all options open. So I'm gonna assume that it's a possibility. So he spoke out. So I do believe his words have some sort of value. Also because, of course, he is the legend of the club. And he talked about Allegri. Now, before I get into it, I'm gonna say that I agree and I disagree with him. And I like what he said, and I also don't like what he said. Keep in mind, like he is my all-time favorite player ever. You know, not just Juve wise, just ever. So nobody can accuse me that I'm a hater. But he spoke, and the main thing he said was there are other things, because he was asked about Allegri. Should he be sacked now or just in general? You know, is he the right guy? And he said there are other things to think about. Allegri is not the problem. Also because the team has recovered, and after Napoli playing a different league, they're first, which is also not true because we're a point behind or 2 points behind Milan. I don't know anymore. Now, what I do like that he said is, because he was talking about sacking now, I wouldn't sack Allegri now mid-season, because for the simple fact of you should be getting top four, you know, with this team easily. And I know one loss at this moment in time means you're sitting in 7th place. It's that close, but it's kind of normal for the period of the season we are in. However, I don't think you need to sack him now, because I thought about it, and I cannot come up with one name that would take this job now, mid-season, with so many question marks around the club. Like, literally. Who's going to be the owner? That's a question mark. Are they going to keep the club? Who's going to be in the boardroom? You know, who's going to be the sporting director? Which players are going to leave? Which players are going to stay? You know, what about the investigations? No serious manager who respects himself is going to come into this job. Like, I will be stunned if an actually top coach, a respected coach, will come in and be like, I'll take this on, all this, whatever you want to call it, I'll take this on now, and I'll steer the club towards, I don't know towards what, the end of the season. So I'm okay with that, you know, because it's a mess. Now, what I don't agree with is he's not the problem. He's part of a big problem. Like, it's undeniable. Yes, the team is weirdly constructed. There are players in that team on way too much money, and they're not good enough. But that's not on Allegri, most part, because he didn't hand out those contracts. Besides a few of them, De Chilio, we know about that. But the big guys, the big earners who are not performing, and actually haven't been performing for a while, that's what it is. That's club decision mostly, and all those things. So I get that part, and I agree that as a team, or like as a squad, this team is again weirdly built. You know, if Di Maria falls out, like you know the usual stuff. You need to play McKennie on the wing most of the time, which is not good to keep it very respectable. Then you have at times you need to play. Excuse me for that. You need to play a Rabiot on the wing. So the squad is not what it should be. Now, that doesn't mean that Allegri is not part of the problem, because he is. He's been here for 2 seasons, and have we improved? No. Like, you can talk about the streak, whatever. We know we're gonna have the same type of season again like last year. You know, fighting for top 4. So that's not improving. I don't want to hear at the end of the season, oh, but we got more points. Okay, good, you know, whatever. On the pitch, excuse me, you can see it's not improving, and that Napoli game was the biggest proof that it's not improving. No, so I don't like that because he is part of the problem. Everybody knows that. Nobody can deny that. Even if you support Allegri, there's no way you can say he's not making mistakes or he's not getting the best out of these group of players, in my opinion. And I know we won 8 games in a row, but the way we won, it was just it was so obvious that you knew you had no shot against Napoli. You just knew it was gonna fall down one more time. Now I don't know how they're gonna react on Wednesday against Monza. You assume they're gonna win against Monza, and you should assume they're gonna beat Atalanta. Like that's what you should assume for this club. Um, but no idea if it's gonna happen. Now, which I absolutely hated was the part where he said, besides Napoli, we're first in table. Like, first of all, that's a lie because we're behind Milan. But to make that statement, I don't want, I just don't want to ever hear that coming out of a mouth of any fan, to be honest. Like, that is something a Napoli fan would be saying maybe years ago, you know? Oh, we're competing, we're so close, like, Juve have done something crazy. But, you know, if you don't count Juve, we're first. And they literally did that at times, you know, with weird standings. If you don't count goals from minute 80 to 90, we'll be in first place. Like, that's not a thing we should be associated with, you know, with these quotes. And I love Del Piero, but like, if, and I agree also that if the club is not going to be sold, we need somebody to have, you know, the face of the club. We do need to think out of the box for once and don't think Italian manager or ex-player or whatever and do something completely different because I think it's really needed at this moment in time. But I get, you know, have one face of the club who is not a puppet, by the way. He shouldn't be a yes man like Maldini, who is not a yes man. But then again, they're owned by a completely different type of owner. Maybe it's much easier for him to be like that than, you know, do that under this ownership. But that last part just pisses me off. Like, you just can't say that. You know, you're speaking about one of the biggest clubs in the world, and you're saying they're first if you don't count the actual team sitting in first place. Like, no, that's it's so wrong with me. It's really wrong with me because actually, do you want that mentality to sip down into the club, into the players that, you know, yeah, 5-1, but like, they're so good, you know, yeah, we're gonna accept it. We're doing a good job, like you said, you know, first place if you don't count Napoli. I don't know. It sits deep, knowing what we have done over the course of the last decade and how we have fallen. You know, like we look like we just have nothing to bring against those teams. Inter 3 years ago or 2 years ago, Milan, Napoli. Like, it feels like we are slipping away further and further, which is weird because of the decade we have. Like, it then makes you think, like, how on earth did it fall completely? Yes, an off season, but then you pick it up again. No, we've fallen off completely compared to that decade. So I didn't really like that. You know, I still love him. He's my favorite player ever. Again, but those quotes, like those, I don't want to hear. Like, I don't want to hear about. We will learn from these mistakes after a game. They're not doing it anymore because, well, you've been saying it for years and you're not learning. So it's pointless to say. But like all these little quotes, I don't know, they frustrate me. Now the transfer news is linked to a few of these things because not all fault or all blame is on Allegri, but part of those mistakes are by the club, by Allegri, and by both of them in agreements. When I read these news or this news, excuse me, from Tuttosport, and again, people say it's Tuttosport. We have been linked with him by good sources, even Nico Shira. So it's a real thing, and I know Tuttosport is misspelled. But Tuttosport is saying steps forward by Juve for Chris Smalling, whose contract renewal with Roma is still far off. The club also keeps looking at Kiwior, who's valued at around 20 million by Spezia. Now, that last part I like that we're looking at that player, but if it's 20 mil, just walk away because he's not a 20 million player at this moment in time, and I don't even know if he's good enough to be a main starter. So I need a starter, and I just don't see it with QER at the moment. That makes me think he's gonna be the main guy. I could be completely wrong, but we need to invest in a starting center back like next summer alongside Bremer. That's what we need to do. And that starting center back cannot be Chris Smalling. I don't know how old he is. He's 33, 34. I don't care if he's a free agent. Don't do it. Don't waste money on these players. And those are the mistakes. Excuse me. Is Chris Smalling a bad player? No, he's not. He's a good Serie A player. But we don't need good anymore. Like, we have good players. And they're not cutting it. We need something completely different. We don't need a 33-year-old, Chris Smalling. We just don't need it. I do believe, like, I don't know what wages he will demand. 3.5 for 2 years. That's, in my opinion, that's just a waste of money. You could and you should invest in somebody who will grow with the club and you can sell on if he decides to leave or you decide to sell him. You cannot do that with Chris Smalling. So that actually scares me. That news, because it's also coming from Nico Schira, it scares me a lot. And that's on the club decision. Allegri signing off that. Now, I do agree there's no real board at the moment. So these reports, news, a lot of people can say they're not true. I get it. But Cherubini's still at the club and working. And assuming of the latest report, he's going to stay. So you can assume he's working on summer deals or whatever he's working on. Like, he's not sleeping because the club has no official board. Like, he's doing his thing still. Because at some point, you need to have something. And this news scares the hell out of me. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, these type of deals make me think about, what direction this club is going, which ideas they have. And based on the wiretaps, I think the only thing they have proven, like we said many times, that Paratici is an idiot, but also they were all not agreeing. Like, Cherubini was calling out Paratici. He was not directly calling out Arrivabene, but he was not saying what Arrivabene was preaching in front of the media. Like, they were all saying different things, they all wanted completely different things. One wanted to sell on the youth players for Plus Valenza. The other one wanted to use the youth players. The other one wanted to just cut wages, and that's about it. No kind of look for quality or building a team. So it's all over the place, and I think that has shown on the pitch. And if Chris Smalling is a real target, then moving forward, I have so many question marks. But to top it off, or to finish it off, it's Alexandro. Because last week there was a rumor or like the report that he has an automatic renewal in his contract for 1 year. Now, according to Tuttosport, it's if he plays if he makes 40 appearances, it will be an automatically 1 year renewal. He's on 19 now, so it's still far away, but also not. If we somehow manage to play in 40 games and activate that clause, I don't know what to tell you, because I think that's a proof that we have no idea what we are doing. He shouldn't be on that pitch. He shouldn't be a starter because he's not good enough. And he shouldn't be at the club next season. So if it's indeed 40 appearances, you still have, I don't know, almost 20 to go, I guess. And then you can, bench him forever. I don't know. But even 20 at this point seems like, is he going to play 20 more? Is he going to have 20 more appearances? I don't know. After a Napoli game and even just the whole season, like, it's, if you look at him, it's like, like, it's just average. Like, it's just okay, but like nothing where you're like, oh, okay, I don't know. But should it happen, the activation of that clause, then it's the club, knowing what they're doing and actually, going for it, which is absolutely ridiculous if they do. But for now, you need to give them the benefit of the doubt and believe that they will do the smart thing and don't play him 40 times. So you're gonna be stuck with him on 6.5 million euros for 1 more year. That's the reality. again, I don't want to be negative because a lot of people think, you're negative and all those things. But I agree. Like, you don't need to sack Allegri now. I do think you need to move on from him in the summer because I don't really see real improvement. I just don't. It's just the same. It's the same over and over again. Um, I didn't like what he said about if you don't count Napoli. We laughed about these quotes for years, and now we're just making them up ourselves. Like I just don't like that mentality. And the Chris Smalling thing, I don't know. Let me know in the comments because to be honest, I've not seen one fan on social media being hyped about getting Chris Smalling. But if you are, let me know in the comments and try to convince me. Other than that, nothing to add. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you back tonight for the preview for the Coppa Italia game. Oh no, that's Wednesday. Excuse me. But we will see you tonight for live. So stay tuned for that, and ciao.